Hey everybody. Tonight we are going to just talk briefly about some things that are going on in the market, um, and then also talk about some important things going on in the news, and then go over financials for Apple. We're going to start covering the stock financials tonight. Couple of things going on in the marketplace. Some things that I was going to cover on Monday. It wasn't like super important, so I didn't drop it in the group chat. But to go back to a couple of things I had taken notes on, just measuring and looking at weekly inflation. So current inflation is being measured at about 5.3%. I'm going to share my screen just so that you guys will have something to look at for now. So current market inflation is about 5.3%, which, as you guys know, that means that you have to have your money growing by at least 5.3% in order to make sure that your money is at current pace with inflation. And then on top of that, you actually have to make sure that you're making money beyond that. So that's why knowing what the current inflation rate is, that's why knowing that is so important. One of the ways you can start to see and know what gross inflation is like is literally to look. The Fed will literally tell you all the information you need to know. We had a couple of speeches today. So the chairwoman of the FDIC spoke on CNBC today, gave really good information. We had an SEC chair that spoke today. We had a Fed chair that spoke today. None of these were on the Forex Factory calendar, but knowing what happens in the news and knowing when some of these people are going to speak just makes it really important to kind of help know like what some of these indicators are in the marketplace, what's actually going on, and how they are seeing it. So that's what we're going to start talking about a little bit tonight when it comes to stocks, like the sources that you're following when it comes to that. So we had consumer price index news that came out yesterday. Consumer price index news was off, wasn't off by a whole lot. And actually, whenever you translate that, it translates into inflation not being quite as high, or price increase not being quite as high as they were thinking month over month. But there was an increase nonetheless because it's not negative. If it had been negative, prices would have actually dropped. So it does mean that prices actually increased. So that's something that you want to pay attention to. Just know that even if something doesn't meet forecast, doesn't necessarily mean that it went down. It just didn't meet what the expectation was. So prices still grew. They didn't grow by as much as they were forecasting, but that growth still means that you're paying more when you go into the store. And whenever you're talking about gross inflation, you will at some point, depending on how that number is calculated, you will add that number to the quarterly number, you'll add it to the monthly number, and that will help you start to gain a picture of what gross inflation is like in the market. Today, we had more consumer price index news. So prices grew strongly in the GBP market, in the Canadian market. Oil inventories, we're looking at those, talking about just how travel and transportation is working right now. So all those numbers are there. I'm just not covering all of it in depth because we have a lot of information and stuff to cover tonight. The biggest thing we're going to be looking forward to, because this week is definitely a week of consumer sentiment, inflation, and retail news. So it's really about sentiment. Sentiment and inflation kind of rule the week when it comes to news. So retail sales come out tomorrow, unemployment news comes out tomorrow, and then we have consumer sentiment news that comes out on Friday. So in addition to this, some people have asked me about how I know and come up with my thought process behind bills and how do I know when stuff's coming out. So I'm going to show you guys this one more time. I literally, this is not my personal computer. On my personal computer, the last time you guys couldn't see my screen. So literally congress.gov is a tab I have that comes up. I literally have 5 tabs that pop up automatically when I open a web browser. This is one of them. And I literally just go in here and I type in just words that I think of. Oh, and look, crypto. Crypto has 20 bills, 20 congressional records. It might be a bill, it might be where someone talked about crypto, it might be something they're trying to pass. Anyway, it has 20 different times where crypto was mentioned. And these are, when I say 20 different times, I mean 20 different days in Congress where crypto was mentioned. So yeah, I just go through and I read these, I see who said what. Let's see. So the last time was like about a month and some change ago. So you literally can go through here, see what they talked about, see what the bill was, everything. So yeah, you'll see crypto, you'll see the whole conversation. You can go through and read it. Also, you can watch C-SPAN. C-SPAN is great for showing you what's going on with the House and what's going on with the Senate. They each have a C-SPAN channel. That's why there's C-SPAN 1 and C-SPAN 2. One's for the House, one's for the Senate. You can go through and literally watch Congress from the time they go in to the time they leave and hear it for yourself or see it for yourself. So cool segue into what we're going to be talking about tonight, because tonight we are talking about financials. We are going to be talking about how to read these balance sheets when it comes to stocks. And when it comes to stocks, when it comes to these companies, your sources for information matters a lot. So the biggest thing to know is when you want to find out something about a company, if you want to find out if they are in order, if everything they have going on has been vetted, has been looked at, if you want to find out about financials they've received, financials they've given, if you hear an art or if you see an article that says, let's just say someone's like, yeah, you heard they gave Tim Cook, 5 million shares of Apple stock. You're like, what? I'm like, yeah, they gave him Apple shares. Well, you can go to sec.gov, or if you were on the last Zoom call, I can spell Apple. You can go to Apple's website, come down here to the bottom and go to investors. And you can click on their SEC filings because they gave that as a gift. They have to report anytime they give stocks to employees, to C-suite members, which are corporate people. They have to file that with the SEC because that is a major gift. It is something that can move the markets. So they have to report that. And guess what? They do it for you on their website. So the SEC and that actual company's website is going to be your first source of reliable information, because when a company is publicly traded, they are not bound to the rules of private companies. They can't hide things anymore. They have to file things. They have a time frame in which things have to be filed. So if they don't, they get fined. They get fined a lot of money, and they could lose their regulatory status. They could lose their position in the stock market. So they have to do these things. It's not optional. It's a mandatory thing. So for a fact, if you want to know if something's true that you read in the news, go straight to the source, go straight to the company, look it up. I can click on this and it literally tells me they gave him common stock. It tells me the transaction date. It tells me how much. It tells me prices at which it was given. It tells me everything I need to know. So I know that they gave him stock at 4 different prices. So anyway, all of this stuff is vital. It's really important as we start talking about these balance sheets, because as we go through this, we're going to be talking about those things. Those things are accounted for on the balance sheet. We're going to be talking about how companies move money, how companies are able to do what they do when it comes to taxes. We might go down that far tonight and talk about tax income. But at the end of the day, this is really going to show you and give you the knowledge to help you understand why and how corporations function the way that they do. So, all right, getting started. So, every balance sheet, no matter if you're on Apple's website and you're reading this on their website, or if you're on Google Finance, if you're on Yahoo Finance, it doesn't matter. Balance sheets are always set up the same way. Income statements are always set up the same way. They're set up like this to make it easy for you across the board. It provides consistency. So the top line, the very first line that you're always going to see is going to be revenue. So your revenue is going to be the dollar amount of the goods and services that were sold by the company. So it's the total amount of goods and services. So because companies provide information either on an annual basis or a quarterly basis, you can look at both. I choose to look on a quarterly basis because of a few reasons. Because they pay out dividends in quarterly basis. They have shareholder meetings in a quarterly basis. And whenever they measure performance, they are measuring performance based on the prior quarter. So they're looking at earnings based on how well they outperformed the prior quarter. So what we're looking at now is broken up and is showing every 3 months. So we're looking at quarters here. Anytime you're looking at a sheet with me, we're always going to be looking at quarters, and we're going to be looking at this quarter here for 6/30. So this is last quarter's information. So the revenue for last quarter was 81.4 billion. I know you see 2 commas and you're like, where did you get billions from? It's because right here it says all numbers are in thousands. So you have to add 3 more zeros to every number that you see that has a comma. So every number that has a comma, you have to add 3 zeros. So last quarter, Apple's revenue was $81.4 billion. And so when we start talking about cost of revenue, the cost of revenue is actually how much it costs them to actually produce those items. So it will be how much did it cost for Apple to make the iPhones, to make the iPads, to make the watches? How much did all of that cost? So now what you're going to do is take how much money do they actually bring in, subtract what it costs them to do it, and you get gross profit. Then you're going to take your gross profit and you're going to subtract it then from your operating expenses. So if you click, you'll actually see what the operating expenses are. So you have general and administration. So you have your salaries, you have research and development, you have a little bit of marketing built into there, but marketing is also part of cost of revenue. So they spent essentially about $5.4 billion on salaries, and paying employees, and making sure that benefits were where they needed to be, based on their handbook and such. So then you subtract operating expenses from your gross profit. Two different kind of interests that you're going to see on a balance sheet. You're going to see interest that they earned, but then you're also going to see interest that they paid. So a lot of companies will hold bonds, hold items where they earn interest, but then they will also have loans where they have to pay out money. So you will see both of those represented in the balance sheet. So the easiest way to remember and to kind of conceptualize all of those items that are in these first, I'll just go with the first 5 lines, is to think about your paycheck. So when you get paid, you get a gross pay, or you get a gross pay. So, you get an overall amount for what you've worked during a pay period, whether it's a week, every 2 weeks, or a month. You get a gross pay. Then they're going to start taking out deductions. So they'll take out your healthcare insurance. They'll start taking out, taxes, all of those things. And then even aside from that, what they don't necessarily take out of your check, but what you take out of your net, once you actually get your money, is like, gas to actually get to work, your food, maintenance for your car. Some companies pay that, some don't. So all of those things come out. That's what all of this is. Sorry. That's what all of this is in here. Is money that's coming out, money that is being subtracted from the top line, essentially. So with Apple, a really cool thing about Apple is looking at the historicals, looking at where Apple has come from. And this is going to be important also for when we talk about, I don't want to look at it like that. Probably just click on maybe. I want to look at the chart. So the really important thing in looking at all of this is knowing cycles of a company. We've talked before about how every market has a cycle. Well, stocks have cycles too. If you guys are iPhone users, if you're really big into Apple products, then yesterday was a big day for you. They unveiled the iPhone 13. They showed the features. They showed all the new products that Apple's going to have coming out. So if you know anything about Apple, you know that Apple always does this in September. Apple always has a unveiling of what they're going to be producing, as far as their products, in September. It's a given. It's like a holiday for some people. What that also tells you is that if Apple is releasing a product in the 4th quarter of the year, so this chart doesn't really show what I want it to show. So we're going to find a way to look at it. Okay. We'll just look at it like this for right now. All right. So Apple released we'll look at last year's data. So Apple released their products in the third quarter of the year. So going into the fourth quarter of the year, we're literally looking and it's like, okay, this is when the product is supposed to be selling. The holiday season's coming up. That's why Apple structured it the way that they did. You get bigger sales. You get, oh, new iPhones coming out. Christmas is coming up, you know, holiday season. You can bundle it in with other items. You can, you know, roll it into the trade-in programs that Verizon, AT&T have. You can roll it into something with Walmart for their Black Friday sales. You can start doing little things to help push and promote and put your product out there. And it just makes all the sense. Well, in the season that it's currently selling in, you're not going to see the results. When you are going to see the results is in the beginning of the year. So they actually report their earnings on what happened in the fourth quarter in the following year. So then they report it as December 31. But it's the end of year sales. It's like the last day of the quarter, but they report it in the next quarter. So December 31st ends the fourth quarter. This is when they're actually reporting those sales. Nugget for you guys. Apple typically has its best quarter, first quarter of the year when they're reporting what happened during the holiday season. I don't know how far Yahoo Finance is going to scroll back and go back through data, not far. But historically, it's there. Like you literally will be able to see the data for Apple. If there's no other quarter of the year that Apple ever does great, it's always the first quarter of the year because they're reporting their holiday sales. It makes sense. They're reporting holiday sales, then sales taper off a little bit. You do have some holidays in the first quarter of the year that they can typically make money off of. But typically Apple isn't worried about making money in the middle of the year. The middle of the year is typically when Apple is doing their research and development. They're doing their testing for the next product that's coming out. So who cares? They don't care if their sales drop in the second or third quarter of the year. So what? They mission accomplished for them. They did what they needed to do. They got the people who always want to be the first. You have that group of people who always want to be first, got to have it first, got to test it out first. The people who are the influencers, get it out to them, get it out to the YouTubers so they can test it, do the comparisons, do the water tests, do all that stuff. That's built in. That's literally built into this. All of that is built in. So they build that in literally, knowing that they have to send out product to people to make sure that it gets done. But they also know that it's a product that's gone, so it ends up being accounted for in revenue. So in addition to the influencers and the gotta have firsters, those people who are in lines wrapped around the stores, they anticipate that. Then the people who are like, well, let me make sure the iPhone the battery doesn't explode, the screen doesn't do this. Let me make sure all the flaws have been worked out, then I'll get it. Those people show up in the second quarter earnings report. That's why typically they're high, but they're not as high as the first quarter data. And this is typical. It's very typical. And then you'll see sales drop off during the summertime because for the most part, people have already gotten the phones if they wanted it. The middle of the year, there really isn't an incentive for people to try to get a new phone. And then third quarter, well, you're back to showing off what the next iPhone is going to be. So Apple, just like any other type of market that there is, has cycles. Every stock has a cycle. So when you guys are thinking about building a portfolio, when you're thinking about putting something into your watch list, just know that for every stock you're adding to your portfolio, it's like having a kid. Like, you wouldn't have 10 kids if you didn't think you could keep up with 10 kids, hopefully. So don't put 10 stocks into your portfolio and you can really only manage like 2 or 3. When I say manage 2 or 3, it's literally being able to keep up with the news for these stocks. So it's being able to, the news that I showed you with Tim Cook, being able to keep up with stuff like that, being able to just know what's going on with your company, and then checking out your company, checking out the income statement, and come over, check out the balance sheet. We'll talk about this also, talk about their cash flow, how much cash flow they have, and then just being able to look at the charts, see what's going on the charts, and just know how well your company is doing. What are they really getting themselves into that could be a problem or they could have an issue with? Apple. So we're just really looking at their chart. This is typical for what an Apple chart would look like for this time of the year, considering that sales kind of stagnated because we had a resurgence of a variant of the coronavirus. But then also right here, we had news that came out. So not to be lengthy about it, but Epic Games and Apple have been going through issues. They've been going back and forth about being listed in the Apple Store. Epic Games wants to be listed, but they don't want to have to pay Apple's fee and have to give that kickback to Apple for being there. So they're trying to find a way around it. And then trying to find a way around it, they got in trouble with Apple. And anyway, they're in court for all of that. So this is the court news that's going on. But Apple, I don't suspect that Apple will stay here or stay in this area for long, just considering what's going on with new iPhone release. However, if there are issues with the release of the iPhone, I will suspect that there will be issues in this stock price. If things go well, I suspect prices will go up. Here are the things that I'm thinking about with Apple. So let's go back to the financials, because this goes into cost of revenue. Like, what does it take to make an iPhone? Well, you got to have metal. You got to have your glass, your Gorilla Glass producers. But the biggest thing that goes into every single electronic item that we have, whether it's the computer I'm on now, my cell phone, my tablet, the TV, it takes chips. It takes the semiconductor market for us to have iPhones that work and work properly. Like, you can't use an iPhone without having a chip. That goes into cost of revenue. That goes into the price. Well, where are those chips coming from right now? China. Who is having supply issues? China. Who is having shipping issues? China. So what is my thought process right now? My thought process is, I hope that in developing this iPhone, especially since the development of this iPhone happened last year and not this year, that there was proper planning in place to get chips, because the last iPhone that came out had delays and had issues in the drop date because of chips. Apple can't at this point afford to have issues with supply. So that's one thing I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about when the phone does actually come out, even if the phone is whole, the chip's there, everything's working on the out, like it looks good on the outside, how does it work? How does it function? Because you don't want chips to have been rushed to be made. You don't want batteries that were rushed to be made that have issues. So like the first month of the phone being out is really crucial for the stock price, because you definitely want to make sure that the phone has a really good, solid release. And then back to Epic Games, anything that unfolds in the stock price, anything that unfolds in the lawsuit, sorry, could affect the stock price. If something seems like it's going in Apple's favor, you'll see a bump up in the stock price. If you see something that's going more in Epic Games' favor, you'll see a decrease in the stock price. But long term, we're not going to talk about it a whole lot right now, but I look at their balance sheet. I look at how much money they have. Apple is a solid company. Apple has so much money. Like, look at their total assets. Look at their liabilities. And we'll start talking about how what looks like a liability really isn't a liability. But like cash equivalents, receivables, like we'll start looking at a lot of this stuff on the next Zoom call. But essentially, Apple's a solid company. When we're trading stocks and when we're talking about buying stocks, we're not just buying stocks through a release of an iPhone. Some people do. I used to do it. It's very risky because you don't know which way it's going to go. But if you're trading long-term play for Apple is amazing. Like Apple's solid. Like if you think about the #1 phone brand in the United States, it's Apple, it's the iPhone. Like, so if you start talking about who's the #1 in an industry, those companies are solid. Those companies are well known. People just spit them out just like that. It's no problem whatsoever. So even if Apple doesn't have a great release, they'll recover and they'll bounce back. We see that because, you know, few iPhones back, they didn't have a good release, but what are people still buying? Apple products. Apple is trying to venture into the car sector and be a competitor of Tesla. We will talk about Tesla, maybe, I think it's the end of next week. I have it in one of the lessons. Hint, hint, Tesla is not a car company. So for those people who think that Tesla is a car company, they're not. They are a tech company who makes cars. Don't let that be confusing. Like Ford is a car company. Chevy is a car company. GM, they make cars. Tesla makes technology and then they put it into cars and they just have their own car. They're not a car company. And we'll talk about that because you have to know what industries these things fall into. Apple is a communications technology company. They provide communications and they also provide technology. So I'm going to leave that there. I have a sheet that I'm going to put in the group chat for you guys later on tonight. It's just going to have breakdown of the terminology. So I'm going to be telling you guys what revenue is. We'll be talking about cost of revenue. I'll put an example of what cost of revenue is in there. I'll also talk a little bit about gross profit on that sheet, and then operating expenses. And then what I'll have you guys do is just go through and find a stock that's not Apple, because Apple is just going to be the one that we use for class because it's something that everybody knows. But I want you guys to go through, find a company that's not Apple, and write down the amounts from the last quarter. So you can go to Yahoo Finance, go to quarterly, and write down the amounts from the last quarter of what the values are. So I'll put, what I want and put a line beside it, and you just write the amount. It'll only be like 3 or 4 items. I just want you to get in the habit of looking at income statements, just really seeing the numbers, knowing how to read them, knowing that this is $81.4 billion and not million, because the numbers are reported in thousands, and just knowing what all of this consists of. So that's that. If you guys have any questions, or if you want me to cover something, or you just want me to elaborate on something, put it in the chat and I'll do that at the end of the Zoom call. Or if you just want to ask me, you can save the question to the end of the Zoom call and I'll do it after technicals. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Mr. Levels so that he can do the technicals.
Yes, sir. Great work. Great information. Great presentation, Corman. We appreciate you, as always. Greatly appreciate you. You are our unicorn. Thank you. I said thank you, child. That's funny. I know you can't unmute. I was messing with you. Let's get these technicals done. Let's go. Alrighty. So looking at DXY. Um Alright, so Monday we was here. We see we got a sell-off here. Price came back up. And today we got another sell-off. I do wanna I'm moving my stuff around. I do wanna see the dollar continue to come on down, retest this structure down here. Um So yeah, let's see how that play out for the rest of the week. Looking at our currency pairs, we did get a play up off of the structure that I was looking for. Um, Time and price gave us a setup today, so that was good. I think this play was for about 30 pips, so can't complain about 30 pips. Um, Looking at GBP USD, we didn't come all the way back down to test the structure, but we see we did get a slight push to the upside. I still wouldn't mind seeing it come back up to retest here, sell back down. So we'll have to see how that play out for the rest of the week. Let me see something right quick. So you look at the dollar. Yeah, we could be about to see GBP USD sell down for the rest of the week. Look back at Euro USD. Yeah. could be about to see currency sell off for the rest of the week. Oh yeah, see NZD did come all the way back up to retest those levels. So yeah, we could very well be getting ready to see currencies sell off for the rest of the week. Because as you can see, NZD did make, you see how, well, I didn't put one on here, but if I would have put one on here, it would have been right here. Let me see if I still got it with the eye. Ooh boy, getting a little rough. I was on right there. See a little off right there. I need to bring that down. Alright, so I was off a little bit. It's off. Okay, so Euro USD did come up, retest. Good. Okay. Boom. Okay. NZD, GBP NZD didn't. I would have liked to see, but we can see NZD USD did. So we gotta see now. We right here at this structure that we're at. This structure. That's a big structure, right? So what I just want to see is that I want to see if we hold that. If we hold that, then I want to see NZD USD push back up to retest this previous high. What's that? That's about 30 pips. So but if we push down, then of course I want to see NZD USD come back down here to retest this low down here, and we might come back down here to retest this structure over here to fill in this imbalance. See that imbalance right there? See that? Yeah. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that. Let's look at silver. Silver's still struggling with the struggle. I mean with the structure. We ain't gonna worry about that. Gold did give us that pop up that we were looking for to fill in this first imbalance. But I do want to see if we can get up here to take out that liquidity and fill in this imbalance here as well. So see how markets play out for the rest of the week. We see oil is still pushing up. We did break through the level. Y'all see that we broke through the structured level. I told y'all Wednesday that I wanted to see all come and retest 72 and retest these previous highs up here at 73 and 74. So all is pumping good. Time and price gave you a great setup today. Great setup. I'm gonna go to the 30-minute New York Open. Oh yeah. Had opportunity to catch all that right there. So good setup for oil. U30. I told you guys on the video that I sent out that I wanted to see U30 push back up, retest this level, and potentially retest these levels up here. We see we got that push up today. Time and price gave you a setup. See, time and price was kind of uncertain today, and the day was Wednesday. Shouldn't be trading today. But yeah, I don't like that time and price setup. But I did want to see price come back up to retest this level at 34 78 and 34,788 and 34,900. Price came up to 34,825, and now price is currently at 34,834. So only a few pips away from target price. Um, so see if we stay above 34,788. If we do, then I expect to see U30 come back up to retest previous highs and potentially fill in this imbalance to finish out the rest of the week. So we'll see how that play out. I'll stop the recording and take any questions.